not going to surprise anyone, that sort of play.
Although Reed's deck is a little bit outside of convention. I mean, it's close to the list he played at the Invitational, but the update to Sarkin is a pretty significant departure from what he was doing before, where it was just a light, or actually no splash at all, rather.
All right, well, Kevin Jones, you see on the left, he's playing Jeskai Tempo against Scott Robbins. Scott on the right is playing another Abzan mid-range deck. We've seen a lot of different versions of it. This one is, I'm going to go ahead with this one. It's playing for a Johnny's Pride Mate in the list.
Oh my! All right, so what we got to make that thing hum?
Corsair Crufix.
Good.
Siege Rhino.
Got it.
Wingmate Rock.
Sweet.
Bow of Nylea.
Awesome.
I know, right?
Yeah.
That's what we have with it. And lands that happen to gain a life when they come into play.
That is sweet.
All right, we are underway. Kevin on the play plays the Plains, a Mana Confluence and Thoughtseize for Scott. So, and he sees Jeskai Charm, 2 Mantis Riders, and then a Dig Through Time in Kevin's hand. Kevin with no blue mana, 2 Battlefield Forges. His deck's actually pretty different from Jadine's here, if you've been watching some of the coverage today. Instead of running cards like God's Willing or Titan Strength, he's gone for a little bit of a bigger, more burn-heavy approach. He's playing cards like Dig Through Time, Steam Augury, and Magma Jet.
We saw shades of this with the other burn list that we had that beat Matt Ferrando. The name is escaping me right now, but there was also Dig Through Times and that sort of thing going on in that list as well.
Yeah, a Johnny's Pride Mate from Scott actually double mana confluenced into it, and a little bit of a blowout there. It got lightning struck. That was not a card in Kevin's hand when Scott saw it the last turn.
Neither player running on anything approaching all cylinders right now. You know, Kevin here missing blue mana and Scott on 2 copies of Mana Confluence. Not where you want to be against a burn strategy.
Didn't he go second Thoughtseize off Mana Confluence? There's a limit. Scott goes up to 16 off a life gain land. This is Scoured Barrens.
And this is an excruciating tap here from Scott.
I'll correct myself. Blossoming Sands. That's the black-white one. He has a fair number of these life gain lands to go with the Johnny's Pride Mate. We see no more lands from Kevin, especially missing blue, so he doesn't have very many things he can cast here.
Now, the missing blue for Kevin's deck is not that uncommon. He's not really capped out on that level of mana fixing. Only 1 copy of Mystic Monastery, 2 copies of Flooded Strain as well, trying to glue it together with Pain lands and Scry lands and so forth.
Mantis Rider, Kevin does finally find the Shivan Reef, so he's going to knock Scott down to 12. Scott's done a lot of this work on his own, to be fair. Trying to gain some of the life back with Corsair.
Thoughtseize, the Mana Confluences, but he's starting to pull up a little bit with this Corsair Crufix.
Attack here from Corsair. Now, remember, you have to actually watch out for that now. This Abzan Charm is in Scott's hand, so we're Kevin to block there. He might get a surprise. I think he's going to get another surprise here, though. Wingmate Rock is in Scott's hand. Let's see if he goes that way. He does not, though. He's going to go for Thoughtseize. Mantis Rider, Jeskai Charm, Sarkhan, Dig Through Time.
Pretty loaded hand here.
Interesting. I was almost expecting him to slam the Wingmate Rock. He triggered Raid for it.
Seemed like a good spot.
We'll see what his follow-up is. I mean, he also has a Hero's Downfall, so maybe he just kills the Mantis Rider, has the same play available next turn.
It's risky, though. You know, that forces you to probably take the Mantis Rider, and then if Kevin finds lane number 5 for the Sarkin, you just might get closed out of the game before you're able to play much of your hand.
Yeah, he's going to take the Jeskai Charm. Scott could go, and this is pretty interesting, he has a Bile Blight in his hand. If he can induce Kevin to play into it with another Mantis Rider here, he could get a real big reward.
And if he has Hero's Downfall, he's kind of got the best of both worlds. If Kevin finds land number 5, he can just kill the Sarkin, and if Kevin doesn't, he probably adds the second Mantis Rider, and then Scott gets the whole thing.
Scott had the opportunity to play Siege Rhino this turn, but he didn't, just so he could hold up mana for this potential play, and he's going to get a huge reward for this.
Beautiful sequencing here by Scott. Now we see why he held off on the rock.
Yeah, taking 2 again to do this. It has been a complaint about the Abzan decks. They are cavalier with their life total.
For sure. It's been tough. You know, if Scott loses this game, it's not because he didn't do enough powerful stuff. It's just Thoughtseize and Mana Confluence buried him.
Yeah, and this is, he's gained life off Corsair too, and he's still down to 9. But yeah, getting both Mantis Riders there is really big. Now he has an opportunity where Kevin doesn't have anything on the board. He can attack with Corsair. He can cast his own Siege Rhino, and only take 1 damage, well, take 2 damage to do it.
No, he can cast a Siege Rhino
he can cast
for
it for 1 damage. You're absolutely
right.
right.
It gets colorless off the caves, and then he's got it rolled up with the rest of it. So,
and that is a one main deck deicide that's on top of Scott's deck. He draws that for the turn. And Bow of Nylea, the next card up. That's something no burn deck wants to see.
Although it is, again, tough to cast in this spot just because of the land situation.
Let's see, Scott here is going, swings with Courser. He casts Siege Rhino, takes 1 to do it, but gains 3, goes up to 11. Chunking into Kevin's life total here.
It's part of the reason that Siege Rhino is so powerful. It's not just, the gaining life here, which is very good, but it just closes the game so fast. He's got to cut off Kevin's draw steps as well, and Siege Rhino is just doing it all.
Land number 5 from Kevin. So now Sarkhan is live, but is it going to be enough? He's facing down 6 damage. Kevin's only at 8 life.
More like Sarkant, am I right?
Oh.
Yeah, that was brutal.
All right. Well, maybe he'll find a way out of this situation. Seeker's down. He's going to dig through time, most likely, here with a Delve.
Yeah, he has 5 cards in graveyard and 3 mana left over, so it's at the ready.
Yep, Bow of Nylea, the draw for Scott. This is actually a pretty good Bow of Nylea here. It's going to give the Courser Death Touch, if Scott wants it to. He's going to swing. Didn't play a pre-combat, so Seeker will block Courser of Krufix. Kevin going to pain down to 6 here. This is to cast Dig Through Time.
Yeah, I mean, this is still fine for Kevin because the Seeker here is going to pick up lifelink, so this is not lethal.
Yeah, Scott's going for Abzan Charm. I'm not sure sequencing. Looks like he's putting 2 1/1 counters on Siege Rhino. That's actually not going to do it.
Yeah, maybe he missed I'm not sure what Scott was playing around here exactly or how he thought this was going to resolve, but Kevin may have gotten back into this game now. He gets to pick up 3 life here off of this trigger from the spell. Scott is presumably tapped out. I don't know if he has any sort of follow-up here. And then if Kevin has enough burn, he may be able to finish this game off.
Yeah, I put both counters on the Rhino. Were there 1 on the Courser and 1 on the Rhino, he'd be set. He'd kill the Seeker. It'd be unlikely that Kevin would have a lethal swing back.
And Kevin's deck has a lot of looks at lethal here, I'll tell you what.
He's going to get... Yeah, he'll definitely get a shot here. If he can find a Jeskai Charm and a Lightning Strike, for example, that will be enough.
Now, an issue that is maybe complicating things a little bit here is that Kevin is on 4 pain lands. So even if he...
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
He may be in a spot here where I guess he's falling down. He's picking up 3 and...
He's going to 3.
Oh, he'll be fine. Yeah, he can cast whatever he wants to next turn.
2 Lightning Strikes will do it, in fact. If he can find 2 of them, there'd be 3, 3, and then 4 from the Seeker. He got Prowess twice.
Yeah.
Just needs really almost any 2 burn spells. If he could find Magma Jet, pair that with a 4 damage spell if he finds a land.
Now, Kevin still has to play around the fact, Scott's got some lands left over here post-combat, so there could be another follow-up here, but Kevin looked like he was done for.
Yeah, a misstep on Scott's side. Scott had the great Bioblight play earlier. This one a little shakier, but we'll see if it costs him the game. If Kevin doesn't win on this next attack, I don't think Kevin will get out of this.
See what he settles on here momentarily.
Yeah, I think Scott just forgot about the lifelink. If you forget about lifelink, this is just a lethal attack.
Yeah. It's awkward because most of the prowess triggers are just +1/+1. This is one of the few designs that has something else tied to the trigger of playing a spell.
Yeah, we'll see. So the block there happens. Kevin goes down to 3. Will he untap and win? We'll see.
I think he's got it, assuming Scott has nothing left over in hand, because he has Magma Jet and Jeskai Charm.
It takes him 3 to cast all of those.
He can't do all of it. Wow.
Yeah, the mana bases here are just punishing. So he's going to upkeep. The idea is that he wants to upkeep Magma Jet to try to scry into a land that doesn't hurt him.
Yeah. Because he has exactly lethal if he can cast everything, is the thing. So he can't allow the lifelink to resolve and then Jeskai Charm after the fact, because that leaves Scott at 1. So he does need to find a colorless or a pain-free source of mana here to do all this.
Everything has to happen in Yeah, he needs a second source of color mana that doesn't hurt him because
And he doesn't have a lot in his list here. He has 7 basic lands. You see one of them play, so any basic land gets it done in this spot. But there's a Mystic Monastery that doesn't work. The 2 Flooded Strands do work.
no, they don't work. You have to crack them.
Yeah, so 2 Flooded Strands don't work. The Shivan Reefs don't work. The Battlefield Forges don't work. The Temples don't work.
Right.
So
Here we go.
a basic land here is basically what Kevin's on.
Upkeep Magma Jet, trigger Seeker of the Way. Does he find a basic? First card, second card.
Looks like a Shivan Reef and...
Is that if it's a plains, it's no good.
Yeah,
It needs to not be the plains.
Yeah, the Plains is also not good. So yeah, it's mountain or island are the draws here that I think Kevin needs.
If Shivan Reef doesn't do it, what's the other card? I think it's another plains.
That is
We said
heartbreaking.
basic land, and it's close, but should have put a condition on that one. Basic land not named plains. I mean, he has to just put both to the bottom then, right?
I think
Or can he? The question would be, can he use Jeskai? No, you just can't even cast Jet. He
Yeah,
could attack and
yeah.
use Jeskai Charm to put Siege Rhino on top of Scott's deck. He can survive. Right? And he
Yeah.
draws Mountain.
Oh, wow. The perfect one.
Wait, he's not
Ooh.
going to attack. Hold on.
Hold on, he's got to do this before damage. I mean, he needs this trigger to go off now. Like before damage resolves, right?
No, he misses it. He missed it. He had him. He had him there and missed it. Scott goes down to 5. Yeah, it was the prowess. If he had, that charm was worth 5.
Yep.
A misstep on Scott's side, repaid from Kevin. He gives it back to him. He's going to Jeskai Charm the Siege Rhino.
But that's still, I mean, the Courser Crewfix is still good to go here.
It's still lethal, yeah. Kevin's at 4 because he gained life off the Seeker of the Way
Right.
hit from last turn. So he puts Rhino on top. Now, there's some problems here, though. For example, Scott has Hero's Downfall in hand.
Well, the last card in Kevin's hand here is a Sarkin, and if Scott takes any damage off of lands, oh, wow.
He's going to Thought Seize the Sarkhan, which they know about.
Yep.
He can go to 1 or to 2 to Hero's Downfall, the Seeker of the Way. And then he's got to dodge a top deck. He's going to hang back with Courser. I'm surprised. I would have thought if he's going to go this line, I want to see him Hero's Downfall the guy and just swing and force Kevin to have it.
Yeah, I'm not sure what additional draws he fades this way.
Because burn spells kill him both ways.
Yeah.
So I would just say, all right, show me that I'm dead. Kevin's going to say go. Is he going to kill it? I think you'd kill it. He's just going to untap and draw Siege Rhino. We'll see. Big draw for card on top for Kevin. He does have a land. He's going to get to gain a life off that. That puts him to 4. He's giving Kevin some extra draws, but Siege Rhino is going to help here. Start with a swing of Courser of Crewfix. If Kevin has a non-creature spell, he can block it and pump his guy.
But I think any non-creature spell probably would have just killed Scott last turn.
Most of them would have. I'm
There's
not sure all, but most would.
I mean, there's a second copy of Dig Through Time, but...
Siege Rhino puts Scott temporarily down to 3, but then brings him back up to 6.
And this cuts off a little bit, some number of outs here.
Yep.
As now, Kevin is without access to blue mana now. So Jeskai Charm no longer works.
And there we go. Game 1 goes to Scott Robbins.
That was an odd one.
A dicey end game there. I still want to go back, though. I have to give Scott props for the slow play of the Bile Blight. That was one of those high risk. It was a great play.
Well, he identified exactly what his hand allowed him to do and executed on it. After the Thoughtseize resolves, it's, he still has Hero's Downfall in his hand. So the worst case scenario is Kevin goes, untap, draw a land, most likely cast Sarkin. You kill it, you take 3, and the Bile Blight play is still afforded to you. In the event that Kevin draws not a land, or a land that comes into play tapped, or whatever the case may be, you're probably getting it all. And that's just excellent.
Well, the hard part would be, what if he just swings the Mantis Rider and then does something else?
As the first order of business?
No, say he swings the Mantis Rider, first order of business.
Yep.
So do you kill it or take the damage?
You're probably priced into using a Bioblade.
Okay, so but because he had the option to Siege Rhino that turn, I think if you end up Bioblading that turn for one Mantis Rider instead of Siege Rhinoing, I think Kevin, that's a victory for Kevin.
But it's hard, Kevin has to be playing around exactly Bioblight in that spot.
Right.
And that's a hard thing to pull the trigger on if your hand has nothing else going on. Because the risk of the Siege Rhino play there from Scott is if Kevin goes untap, draw a land, plays Sarkhan, you're way behind.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe your removal spells catch you up the next turn, but I don't think he has enough black mana to play both Bioblight and Hero's Downfall the following turn. So I think that Scott's play is probably the best. There's this risk-reward matrix, and I think that Scott's play is probably the best option available. It gives him some pretty high upside lines in the case that Kevin draws certain things, and also protects him the most from Kevin's best draws. So I liked it a bit.
All right, as we go to the sideboards here, let's look at Scott Robbins' deck first. It, on the surface, looks like an Abzan mid-range deck, a fairly typical one, but this Johnny's Pride Mate package is pretty interesting. And I think only gets better post-board here. As we look at his board, he has 3 Nyx Fleece Ram available to him after board.
That's a combo right there.
Oh, a Johnny's Pride Mate and Nyx Fleece Ram? I can get behind it. He has also 1 Sorin Solemn Visitor.
I'm happy bringing in a Nyx Fleece Ram regardless. I mean, you saw a Seeker of the Way, so got something on the ground to block. 2 mana gain a life each turn is arguably good enough to bring in against a deck like Jeskai Tempo anyway. So I like it a bit.
And you have to assume that Rabble Master's in the Kevin Jones's deck, right?
Correct.
It's just too good of a card right now to not be running.
For this kind of strategy, it's as good as it gets, basically. A little bit further down the list, you have a Sorin here if he wants to go a little bit further down the lifelink path. An Osmond Charm, and then Hostilities, 3 Drown Sorrow, and Empty the Pits, Bioblight, a Silence the Believers, 2 Liliana Vest, and a Deicide. Not a lot else that I like here. But the Nyx Fleece Rams are a nice upgrade.
All right, looking at Kevin's side, what do we have?
He has a Sarkhan, another copy, a Temple of Enlightenment, a Narset Enlightened Master, a Keranos, 2 Magma Spray, 2 Ash Cloud Phoenix, 2 Negate, 2 Anger of the Gods, and 3 copies of Disdainful Stroke. I had to imagine Disdainful Stroke is 4 matchups like this.
I would think so. So that's the counters a spell that costs 4 or more for 2 mana.
Counters Siege Rhino and your similar Siege Rhino-ish cards that you are probably playing with.
Yeah, I actually really like that card against mid-range strategies. This is the first time we've seen it in a sideboard, but I'm a pretty big fan just thinking about it.
Me too. I like Ash Cloud Phoenix a lot in this matchup too. Kevin's deck has a lot of removal, and the Phoenix is pretty durable against that. Has some problems locking up the air, and Phoenix is good there as well.
Imagine we could see one or both of those come in here. Outside of that, I don't know how many of the cards here I like boarding in. This seems to me like a matchup that Kevin should be pretty happy with in general.
Yeah, this seems, Scott's a little slow, cumbersome out of the gates. The fact that there's a Johnny Primate has to be cause for concern, because it implies there's a lot of life gain in Scott's deck. But, the Osbound strategies in general feel good for the Jeskai Tempo decks. There's a lot of lands that come into play tap. They're a little cumbersome. They don't have a lot of great ways to lock up the air, so Mantis Rider is a very potent threat. We've seen that over the course of the day. Seems solid.
We are underway for Game 2. Kevin Jones is on the play here. We have seen some of the Abzan decks, Game 1, really struggle with burn-based strategies. Games 2 and 3, they have a lot of good sideboard cards for them. Probably a pretty big achievement on Scott's side that he managed to... I would think he's not a favorite Game 1.
I would agree. Although these sort of strategies have lost their best card in my mind against burn strategies in the most recent rotation, and that is Duress.
Absolutely, the card's fantastic.
Not, Thoughtseize isn't nearly as good, and Despise obviously doesn't hit the problematic burn spells.
All right, underway, Kevin with 2 lands. He's going to get Thought Seized by Scott. Sees Sarkhan, Magma Jet, Lightning Strike, Abzan Charm, lands number 3 and 4.
So I like selecting Magma Jet here if you have some follow-up way to get rid of the Sarkhan, and I think taking the Sarkhan here is reasonable as well.
And he's going to go with the Magma Jet.
Those are the two standouts of this hand. The rest of it is just damage, which of course matters for Kevin's strategy, but
Yeah.
Magma Jet provides utility and a little bit of help with the draw step, and Sarkin provides a lot of power.
A pretty good hand overall for Kevin Jones. I would, it's got burn, it's got a threat. And Scott just going to go to town here, Pain Landing for another Thoughtseize.
To warrant taking a point of damage off of a Land-of-War Waste in this spot, Scott has to have a very curve-sensitive hand. Because
Yeah.
I would prefer to just wait. You can get that charm or whatever else further down the line, and the 1 point of damage matters a lot.
He did 3 himself to take a Jeskai Charm.
Yeah.
That's only, that only does 4 points. We see land 3 is a temple for Kevin, a fetch land for Scott. Trade back. One thing that Scott can do here, we see a copy of Liliana Vess in his hand. He can use that to just start going at Kevin's hand via card quantity.
There's something difficult about that right now, and this is sort of the squeeze that Scott's in. He doesn't want to take the hit from Sarkin that he knows that's in Kevin's hand here. He has a Hero's Downfall in his hand. So I don't think he's going to want to move on using his mana to cast anything unless it's a discard spell, as long as that Sarkin has not been dealt with.
Yeah, so ideally he'd hope that Kevin makes a turn 5 Sarkhan, he can downfall it and then make a turn 5 Liliana back.
Right, that's the ideal scenario. Whether or not Kevin's going to cooperate remains to be seen.
And
oh my.
the end step Obzon Charm, he's going to have to take 3 for those 2 cards. And I can't stress enough, these Obzon decks really like to punch themselves.
For sure. They're leaning a lot on Siege Rhino to make up for all this damage they're taking.
You see he's down to 12, plays a fetch land. He does have Siege Rhino. So he's going to crack a fetch land for Siege Rhino. If he was counting his lands or tracking his lands from the Thoughtseize, then he knows that Kevin has a 5th land in hand and that it comes into play untapped.
Yeah. And, getting the Siege Rhino into play is nice, but taking this hit from Sarkin it's a big cost.
Do you think he can afford to just sit back, though? What if he sits back and Kevin doesn't do anything?
That's the problem here, is Scott's done so much damage to himself that he's almost forced his own hand in this sense. If Kevin just draws burn spells and you're sitting there waiting for the Sarkin that never arrives, you just lose the game that way too. So by taking all this damage off of the Thoughtseizes, the Land-of-War Waste, the Obzon Charm, Scott's forced himself into playing into the card that it looked like he was trying to play around earlier.
So it is that Siege Rhino from Scott Robbins. It's going to be cast off, actually no damage for the mana, so he gets all 3 of the life on it. Puts himself back up to 14, Kevin down to 17.
Obzon achievement unlocked. Can you cast a Siege Rhino without taking damage? It's not easy to do.
We see Kevin here. He's debating if he wants to end step one of these burn spells. Looks like he has another Obzon Charm, and he's going to put Siege Rhino on top of Scott's deck.
Okay.
All right, I know, right? And here comes Sarkhan. He wants to clear the way for this Sarkhan pretty badly, is what that says. Because he didn't want it to get attacked by the Rhino. He's paying a pretty big cost, though.
Well, the Rhino still goes up to... The Rhino only has 4 power the next turn.
Yeah,
so it needs
doesn't
help.
Kill it.
Maybe you're worried about another Obzon Charm or something like that, but feels much better served as 4 damage to Scott.
And Scott's going to recast Siege Rhino. He had the option of Heroes Downfalling. Or no, he didn't. Yeah, he did. Does not have the 5th land. And despite that gain of 3, this opens a spot for Sarkhan to deal even more damage. Kevin's getting Scott to a low number here. Sarkhan can put him down to 9. Scott's going to go to 8 whenever he decides to cast that Hero's Downfall. And he's going to have to cast it. And in his hand, Kevin has both Goblin Rabble Master and Lightning Strike.
It's another issue with that Charm play is now this Rabble Master is kind of locked out in a sense. Whereas, had it been the Siege Rhino had been attacking last turn, which it is in the world where you haven't deployed this, you get another point across with this token.
And if you really wanted to, you could Jeskai Charm it then.
Yes.
There's Rabble Master. The Goblin swings to its doom, but Sarkhan doesn't. He swings in and puts Scott down to 9. Scott gets his 5th land, gains him life back up to 10. And that is something these life gain lands I've actually been very happy with today.
They seem very potent to me, and they had to be doing nothing but helping Scott in this matchup.
Hero's Downfall will take care of Sarkhan. Kevin, just with a Lightning Strike in hand now, still has 10 more damage to go and a Siege Rhino to get through. Rabble Master is a start, but... And what a draw. Kevin with a replacement Sarkhan off the top. That's about as good as it gets here.
It is. Now the question is it worth committing all of your creatures to an attack?
Well, it's only getting one more point right now, right?
One more point is, you know, because Scott's deck is so removal heavy, you know he has Bioblight, you might not be able to get that point of damage back.
Yeah, there's a good chance that you're just never swinging that, never getting any ground creatures through. He's going to give it one more try on the Rabble Master, though. Swings Sarkhan for 4. That puts Scott down to 6. Rabble Master stays at home. And what does Scott have now? Wingmate Rock, I believe the draw. That one doesn't help against Sarkhan. It chumps, but that's about it.
But chumping is not bad here, and then he gets to untap and potentially attack with the rock and trigger it.
So you'd say he would swing Rhino and play Rock?
It seems fine to me. I understand that it's not ideal, but Scott can't wait. The game's only going to get worse from this spot. So he has a line that gives him a pretty attractive, aggressive attack here. Affords him the opportunity to potentially gain life next turn.
And also, Kevin can't defend the Sarkhan.
Yeah.
If Scott goes at it with the Siege Rhino, next turn's Siege Rhino hit is going to take care of Sarkhan. There you see the Rhino puts the Planeswalker down to 1. And there it is, Wingmate Rock. Regular and copy. And he'll pass. Pair of 3/4 flyers. Can Kevin break through this? He only needs to do 6 more damage. He already has 1 Lightning Strike in hand. Fair number of top decks that just get him the game on the spot. Has to wait until he see if he can hit one of them. And let's see what we're looking at. Maybe a dig through time
it is
on Kevin's side. That, to me, that looks like a great draw.
It's definitely not bad, but it's not clear that Kevin can now commit his entire turn to this when Scott's attack the following turn is so good.
Scott's attack gains him 3 life.
Well, we can assume 2 because
2. Sarkhan's going to swing out here.
Yeah, we would assume that the token's going to bite it here.
Scott can double block the Sarkhan if he wants. If there's Rabble Master doesn't swing, I imagine the token just chumps it.
I think so too. The Sarkhan becomes indestructible, so there's not a lot to be gained.
Oh, right. Yeah, you actually can't kill it in combat.
Yeah, so
Good point.
it's just going to be a chump block.
So a swing here of everything, Rabble Master token and Planeswalker. The Wingmate Rock's going to go ahead and get eaten, or eat, rather, the Rabble Master. Sarkhan takes out the Wingmate Rock token. And the Goblin swings for 1. Robbins is down to 5. Or is it, we see him, he's down to 4.
So I like the sequencing a lot from Kevin, filling up his graveyard as much as possible.
Yeah.
Try to give himself the cheapest dig-through time to try to find a lethal spell.
He has a lot of good looks here. He only has to deal a point of damage.
But I don't know if he has it.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
I don't think he would be waiting if he had it, you know?
Magma Jet and Lightning Strike would be the things he's looking for here. That win on the spot. I feel pretty confident he has something that wins next turn. That, of course, there are some issues, though. Scott gets to gain 2 on the attack here. Maybe Scott draws another Siege Rhino. A lot of things could go wrong if you don't win this turn.
Yeah, for sure.
Could play a life gain land. And we'll see, what can Scott get here? His draw was Caves of Koilos. And it's a Johnny's Pridemate. Going to play that pre-combat so that it can grow off this Wingmate Rock attack. They're going to attack at Sarkhan. He goes down. Scott gains 2 up to 3. Stoke the Flames waiting in Kevin Jones's hand. Looks like Stoke and another dig through time were the coup cards kept.
And the dig through time is a really powerful insurance plan, so makes sense to keep it.
Using the Stokes and Plains, Scott does not have anything here, and we're on to game 3.
I think in the previous turn there, Scott did make a misstep there by attacking the Sarkin instead of Kevin, because it feels like Scott needs to close out that game as quickly as possible. The following turn, he's very likely, after the turn we saw, we knew that was going to happen regardless. That token's going to chump block the Sarkin.
Right.
You can either finish off the Sarkin all in one hit if you think that's what's warranted, or you find a removal spell for it. In either event, it's either the same thing as breaking up the Sarkin attacks over 2 turns, or there's way more upside into having distributed the damage. I don't know if it's in his deck, but for example, in that last turn, if Scott had hit Kevin down from 13 to 9, he has 7 points of power in play, and then Obzon Charm is a lethal draw. He actually has outs.
How does he survive the hit off the Sarkhan then?
The Sarkin didn't change anything. I'm saying the turn previous where he attacked with the Siege Rhino and then plays the Rock. He attacks Sarkin down to 1. It's the same thing as...
You're saying at that point, just go for Kevin.
Just go for Kevin, try to close the game out as soon as possible. I think it ended up not mattering based on what the draw steps were, but if Obzon Charm is still in the list somewhere, then it makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Well, those players shuffle up for game 3. Do you want to talk a bit about Star City Games game night? So this is on Wednesday nights. I actually had my first chance to play in one of these last week. It was pretty a blast. Our store put on Legacy for it.
It's a very exciting program. It's been running since September. If you're interested in signing up your store, go to StarCityGames/game night for more information. Every Wednesday night, there's pins and tokens given out. You can see this is the October kit. If you're looking to sign up, please do it as soon as possible. This program is worldwide, so even if you're outside the United States, don't worry, you can sign up regardless. Stores, you have the full discretion to run these programs however you want to. Any format you want, sanctioned, non-sanctioned, just get more players into your store. Some casual focus, organized play. Star City Games game night every Wednesday night. It's live now if you're looking to get signed up. StarCityGames/game night for more information.
What's your favorite card that makes a Star Ooze token?
What is my favorite card that makes a Star Ooze token? I think there is a card from Ravnica that I was charmed by, but I can't remember. What's yours?
All right, I'm going to go with Ooze Garden. This is from Shards of Alara.
Okay, Ooze Garden.
You sacrifice a creature, and then you get an XX Ooze, where X was its power, I believe.
That's pretty good. You can also use this as a Wood Elemental token, which is really nice. Wood Elemental, also a Star.
Yeah, he's really good.
Gaia's Liege, another Star.
Slime Molding.
Slime Molding. Oh, Slime Molding. That's a good answer.
That's a great card.
Yes.
Ooze Flux. That's from Conflux, right? That makes a Star, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, I like the art on it. This guy's sweet. And this will be every week in October. This Ooze token and pin will be the prizes for SCG Game Night.
Right. So again, StarCityGames.com/game night for more information.
All right. Back to our match. It's game 3 between Kevin Jones and Scott Robbins. And what are your thoughts? So we saw Matt Costa earlier playing an Obzon mid-range deck, which was remarkably similar to Robbins' deck, except where Matt was playing Seeker of the Way, Robbins is playing a Johnny's Pridemate. Really similar cards. Mm-hmm. One of them you get a 2/2 for a 2/2 that becomes a 3/3 and gains lifelink until end of turn, whereas Pridemate has the potential to go past 3/3.
Well, it's, I don't know. The question is how much do you want to be playing these lands regardless of any other synergies in your deck?
Yeah.
If you want to be playing a bunch of, 7 or 8 of these gain life lands, well, then go ahead and play as Johnny's Pridemate. But I wouldn't try to squeeze. It's not, I want to play as Johnny's Pridemate, therefore I'm playing these lands, is the wrong way to approach it, in my opinion.
It's I want to play these lands, therefore I will play a Johnny's Pridemate.
Correct. Exactly.
Dude, Kevin looks like he's going to be keeping here Scott on a mulligan. And by what most accounts I think is a difficult matchup for Obzon here.
It seems tough. I mean, the Obzon deck has a lot of good cards, but it's a deck full of moving parts, and it's just the mana base that makes it that way,
Yeah, it's leaning pretty hard on Siege Rhino in this matchup.
Yeah.
We're underway. Turn 1, fetch land for Scott and Temple for Kevin. As I said before, first couple turns, usually these decks don't get anything going until turn 3. Scott, if he hasn't a Johnny's Pridemate, can get a stick and early threat. Looks like he may have just that.
But there's a lot of ways for the Abzan deck to lose this matchup, it feels like, even if they're able to cast their stuff, which is already an open question. You can be stuck with a bunch of creature removal where you're getting burned. You can have a bunch of ground blockers while you're getting hit with a Mantis Rider. There's a lot that can go wrong.
Right. We still have yet to see Anafenza the Foremost take stage in either Scott's deck or Costa's. They were both playing the card, but we haven't gotten to see it cast. And that is the turn 2 of Johnny's Pridemate on Scott's side. Kevin with a second Temple, doesn't have the Magma Jet immediately for it. See if Scott can life gain. No, it's just a swing for 2 and a second Mana Confluence. Ugh. He'll play Corsair of Kruphix.
So this gets bad for Kevin real fast. If there's any lands coming from Scott.
If you haven't seen this interaction, I don't think Scott has a 4th land, but if he can find one after drawing his Anafenza, then his play is going to be land, life gain, Siege Rhino, life gain, swing.
Yeah. A full disaster for Kevin.
But I still think this mana base on Scott's side is brutal.
It's hard on the eyes. There's no,
It's like,
no two ways about it.
Mantis Rider, turn 3. That's the first play for Kevin.
All right, fingers crossed. This is make or break time for both players.
And Scott hits. That's all sorts of bad here for Kevin. Scott's going to play the land, goes up to 14, and Johnny's Pridemate gets a counter. And taps, and he's going to go down to 12, hit himself a couple times. Siege Rhino, though, puts him back up to 15, so he nets 1 life on the deal, puts Kevin down to 14 as well.
Though, as far as a life gain theme deck goes, this is a manageable situation for Kevin because Scott has taken so much damage off of his lands.
Normally, a deck with this much life gain would just be a nightmare for a burn or tempo style deck, but Scott does undo a lot of the ground he gains.
He's not even a life gain deck, he's a treading water deck with some life gain triggers along the way.
We had so many sweet cards that we needed to play that hurt ourselves that we had to play some of this life gain.
He's not trying to gain life, he's striving to remain net neutral. That's all he's looking to do.
All right, we're back on Kevin's side. Has a full grip of cards, but Scott has assembled quite a board. Seems unlikely he'll get to cast all of it in time. He's going to have to prioritize what he needs here.
It's not just quite a board, it's lethal. I mean, this is 10 power in play. Kevin's a 10.
Well, he's had time to make Mantis Rider. That was a start. And we'll see where he goes from here. You see Lightning Strike in his hand. Nothing's in range of that anymore. And it may be, thanks to this, maybe that Scott has just been able to curve him out a little too hard. This is something which I was talking a bit earlier. I didn't feel like many decks were doing much with their turn 2 in this format. That when you're on the play, if you are a deck that has a turn 2 drop, you can still end some of these games really before your opponent can get into it.
Not just turn 2, but a turn 2 proactive play. A lot of these decks have Sylvan Caryatid, but that's still something with your Banishing Lights and Heroes Downfalls allow you to play catch up. If you're playing Pridemate into a card, now all of a sudden the removal spells may not be able to keep pace. And it's a feature that you see in the very aggressive decks in the format, but in the mid-range style decks, very rarely. I mean, it's basically the game starting on Sylvan Caryatid, and you still have time to play catch-up with your removal spells, even if they accelerate into something.
I think I wanted to see either a turn 2 kill spell or a turn 2 threat, and a lot of decks can't produce either of those. And no flying blockers here for Scott, so Mantis Rider is going to be able to do some damage. You see he plays a second one, puts Scott down to 9.
You can see the hesitation here because if Scott has Bile Blight, that's game.
And she draws Elspeth. Is it Bile Blight? Does not look like he has it. He does have Anafenza that we know about. His draw for the turn was Elspeth. Abzan Charm on top of the deck.
But if he doesn't kill him this turn, then Kevin gets him on the way back most likely. He can go ahead and just put the Mantis Rider in front of the Corsair.
And take 8?
Yeah.
Are you willing to do it? Abzan Charm kills you.
Well, yeah, or just something that randomly gains life at instant speed kills you.
Any life gain card.
But, you know, if Kevin rather can't win the game on the way back by chump blocking, then I think he just has to do this and cross his fingers.
I like his play here. In for a penny, in for a pound. If you're going to take 8, might as well kill the Corsair while you're at it.
Right.
And Moment of Truth. Wingmate Rock is in Scott's hand. Can't cast that. Elspeth can't cast that. I like the line Kevin is taking here.
My thought matrix, if I'm in Kevin's seat, is what allows me to save the maximum amount of save as much damage as possible that still guarantees me a kill next turn.
See, he's thinking pretty hard on this one. He knows if he survives with both Mantis Riders, he has this. Can he chump one of them away and still represent lethal? It doesn't look like it. Looks like he needs both. Debating here. We'll let you know when he decides on one.
Now, another factor in all of this here is that maybe Kevin, he has a Sarkin in hand, let's say, which I believe he does. He may be banking on he can still win the game if Scott can't follow up with a play, which is unlikely because of Scott's lands.
Right.
2-mana confluences, maybe you can beat something on the way back.
He could double block Siege Rhino, then use Sarkhan to kill a Johnny's Pride Mate, and then have Mantis Rider holding off the remaining Courser, if Scott has no plays.
Yes, but if you're...
That's a lot of ifs.
Yeah.
We know. All right. If he makes his play, I think he has it. This is a really bold move on Kevin's side. There we go. Gonna kill the Courser, take 8, and there's no tricks from Scott. No Obs on Charm, no life gain. Kevin's down to 1.
Because if Scott double blocks the Siege Rhino, he absolutely loses the game to a removal spell. With this play, at least Kevin still has a draw step. Maybe he can find something.
Kevin at 1. Courser's gonna hit the bin, and Scott has no other plays. He just passes back the turn. This looks like it's going to be Kevin's.
I really like, as much as...
what a tough call on this turn, though.
Right. There are the elements I didn't like about game 1 here, but Kevin has... It's a lot of, there's sweat coming down your brow and you're crossing your fingers, but I think he's found the line that lets him win the game, which is all you can do.
And he knows it. He's got Obzon, Jeskai Charm. I was going to say Jeskai Charm and Lightning Strike. Actually, because he has Pain Lands, he can't cast both of them in the same turn. Because he's at 1.
Yeah.
But I don't think he needs to. So because he has 2 Pain Lands, he is still dead to a kill spell. We'll see if Scott has it. I don't think he does. If Kevin had one of those, if the land he played in this turn was a basic, he would have Scott dead through a kill spell.
Yeah.
See,
but, you can't... playing around a kill spell here, I guess it's possible Scott still has it. You're not 100% sure there's no removal spell in his hand.
Do you think Scott would have just played it pre-attacks?
Most likely, although it doesn't really gain anything because Kevin still has the option of just putting one in front of the Courser.
Here we go. Sarkhan and everybody swings. And that's going to do it. Kevin Jones defeats Scott Robbins in 3. Bold call to go to 1 with that Mantis Rider double block. Pays off. Scott misses his 5th land at a pivotal juncture there.